My name's Jessa Gilbert. I have a solo exhibition at the Revelstoke Visual Arts Center. It's called Flux. It's going to be up for the month of September. I hope you come check it out. Why did I move to Revelstoke? I chose Revelstoke because I love the landscape of it. It's a flat town I can ride my townie bike around in. It has these epic alpine peaks, and the culture is also one that's kind of driven into the mountains. There's a lot of mountaineers here, there's a lot of guides. In pairing both, in my life I split it between working as an artist and also working as an aspiring guide. So it's a great place both to hone my skills in the mountains and also find creative outlets. I started painting as a child. It was my way of expressing what I was going through. I lived in a pretty hectic household, and as a kid I didn't really have the language to describe what I was feeling, so I just used paint and drawing, and it felt free. It was always this kind of creative free outlet. And over the years it became something that I continuously found myself engaged in, both in the artwork and in exploring. It's funny, these two things in my life have always paired side by side, and it wasn't until moving to British Columbia that I found a way to merge the two. So now, rather than working as an artist on one side and working in the mountains on the other, I work as an artist in the mountains, and both fuel each other. I don't think I can't really think of a time where I decided like I'm gonna be an artist, because the idea of like I'm gonna be a starving artist that will work 20 jobs and never have work-life balance didn't really seem like something that I'd be excited about. But it just became, there was no other option for me, really. It was where I found I was the most lit up, my best self. I had the most exciting, it was the most exciting thing in my life. I use art as both a way to communicate how I'm feeling and also to hopefully inspire change. The artwork is all about being present, either in the mountains or in the urban settings or in your internal strife. And I think the more that we show how beautiful things can be and how lively, and really focusing on the change and the ebb and flow, the more that maybe other people will be inspired to pick up a pen or go into the mountains or advocate for sustainable change. This summer has been crazy. So I left Revelstoke in May to go and do basically murals on the road. I had a big project in Vancouver, then in Seattle, and in Colorado. And so instead of flying to each place, I decided to drive and to explore how travel and relocation would affect the creative process. So while I was working on these big projects, these big murals in those cities, I was also creating sketches and drawing some paintings on the road. When I first relocated to British Columbia, I had this series called the Between the Points Project. And it really investigated what happens when we don't have our most ideal environment, when we don't have a studio, when we don't have all the tools available, when we have to really pare things down to its most basic elements, what can fit in your Ranger, in my case. So it's been like both working for clients and also just working on the road, seeing what comes my way and how to express just being present in that moment. So there's a few of those pieces in this show, which I'm excited about. But yeah, it's kind of like, how do you be inspired with what you're given, really? The title of the show is Flux, and really the show is all about change and flow, and how do we articulate and express those things when we don't have control, when they're moving maybe faster than we want them to, and how do we sit in that moment and either find joy or peace or contentment with what changes. They're a collection of paintings and drawings that'll be on exhibition at the Revelstoke Visual Arts Gallery, and they range from sketchbook drawings on the road and stories about change and just relocation, and to bigger paintings that I created here in Revelstoke during my first season in town. Murals are kind of like creating artistic environments for people to move within. Rather than creating a painting that's on the wall or that you can hold in your hand, you're creating a space and an environment that people can immerse themselves in. So rather than being separate and distant to the experience, they're actually a part of it. When things are larger than the scale of your body, you exist in color. So my goal for murals is to create these environments that evoke a feeling on people. And in general, I'm trying to evoke the feeling of joy or the passing of time. To be surrounded by beautiful color, especially in towns in BC, where in the winter we get a lot of gray days and we have a lot of storms. And I feel that by bringing the alpine and alpenglow and the changing of the day and sunsets or sunrises, by bringing those tones back into urban settings, we're really showcasing the diversity and the joy that these places have to offer. Unfortunately, we had a lot of smoke here in Revelstoke this summer, and so murals are a great way to bring that liveliness back into town. I find myself often existing in two camps. So there's like the outdoor industry and mountaineer side, and then there's the art side. And what I love about Revelstoke and this opportunity to showcase here is that it is showing that art exists in the outdoors and the outdoors exist in the art world. When I was learning about art, I was taught that it needed to be monochromatic, it needed to be serious, political, black and white, and it didn't involve landscapes or adventure. I had a professor tell me I had to choose one or the other, to either be in the mountains or be in the gallery, and it didn't work for me. So to showcase in a place like Revelstoke where you can do both, where the outdoors here are so inspiring, whether you're going for a walk down on the Greenbelt or into Rogers Pass, and to bring those experiences that we are so fortunate to have into the gallery setting to remind us of that joy or what we hopefully won't ever take for granted, is something that I'm passionate about. I think that the more that we show how beautiful these places are, the more we'll be inspired and pushed to save them, to advocate for wilderness, to protect where it is that we have to call home. In college, I asked a professor, what should I read to find inspiration in the paintings or in the art world? And he gave me the best piece of advice, well, two things. Play as often as you can, whether it's in the studio or outside, and create what you know. So for me, I find the most inspiration in the places I go, whether it's Rogers Pass or in the Coast Mountains. I'm engaged in the process of looking for art in my daily practice, which has allowed me to be more optimistic about what I'm seeing perhaps, or maybe take those experiences back into the studio. So there's a part where it's lived experiences, which I think is important. To be able to paint something that is really a portrait of that place, you have to have a relationship to it, which is why I'm hoping that these paintings can inspire people to go create relationships with their own environments. I started doing the single line drawings in the mountains when I started splitboarding. So I was on the coast, and I remember it was like my first trip out. It was really terrible weather. There was barely any snow, but I was so thrilled to be out there. And I asked the guide, how do you make a skin track? How does that work? I'm from New York, like there was the lift. And he said, he was pointing at the other ridge, and he's like, you just follow the contours of the terrain. You work your way up to the slope. And I started to think about like, how do we connect our paths, our workings of the terrain, which we're trying to work within, and build that into the artwork. So the single line drawings and its application to landscape really created from going outside and playing on a splitboard, which we should all just go play more. By the time they're painted, you might not see one single line, but the drawings are really there. So it's kind of showing the framework and how it builds. I think that a lot of the pieces become really complicated, and there are many choices involved, but when you pare something down to its rawest element, you have to be really intentional about what you show. It's like the less there is, the more important and the more weight it has. So there's the same amount of intention in these minimalistic drawings as there are in these full-scale paintings. And trying to show the range of how it can go from framework to something bigger is important for me, because process is important. It's all about building and having the sum of its parts lead to the product. So I did a mural project in Denver, which was in the Rhino Arts District, which used to be, it's called 4 Points. It used to be really derelict and run down. And now it's this booming area with a ton of murals, music, live events. And so it's not only being surrounded and within this mural and visual arts community, but I got to create this artwork with at-risk youth. And it was so inspiring to have them come out to work together on the project, to show them the process of going from a sketch to this massive wall that was like 3,600 feet. So it's like an intimidating process, but to bring them into it, to give them the brushes, to show them it starts with one thing, like to be able to share it with the community there was massive. Like, I don't want to be the only one in the gallery. I want more people to be here. I want more youth in here. I want there to be a better culture of visual language and of arts. And the only way to do that is to inspire other people to come and play and to work. So I'd say that those moments where I get to work with youth or with the community, those are my proudest moments, for sure.